Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, I've got two exciting announcements for you today. Um, Super exciting, super exciting. I have book news. Whoop, whoop. I have book news for us. And we're going to have a little chit chat about sex. I know, right? I don't even have any pearls to clutch. Um, so we're going to get to this in just a second. We've been working on the book like crazy. Yes, I printed it out because sometimes things just read differently on paper. And there's still a lot of progress. We still have some edits. We're working on cover design, all those kind of things. But what is finalized is the title. So we're going to go over I'm going to share with you the book title. I actually think this is the first place I've shared it. I shared it in a podcast the other day, but I don't think that's been published yet. So join me, hang out here with me for a few minutes, and we're going to talk about sex for a little bit. And then we're going to dive into this book title, excuse me. So, a lot of us are recovering from purity culture. And one of the things I hear people talking about all the time is kind of the head work that we have to do to reset, to get out from under um, just those teachings about what our bodies are for and who's in charge of them, right? Who has the right to say yes, who has the right to say no? Lots of unhealthy stuff. But what I've noticed is that a lot of those conversations focus on me getting better so that I can be in relationships and so that I can, be more sexually confident or just have better relationships with other people, have more fulfilling sex with other people. And that's cool. Not a thing wrong with that. But I think that what we're missing is that those conversations and those skills and those relationships are really built on the relationship we have with ourselves, right? And so, what I want to do is I want to invite you into some conversations that we're going to be having next month over in the wilderness community. And it's going to get real. It's going to get real. We're going to share some pictures. We're going to share some stories. You won't have to share your pictures and stories, I promise. But we're going to get really, really honest about what it looks like to tap into our own sensuality and our own confidence solely for the purpose of meeting our own needs. Now, sexually, yes. Intimacy, yes. Self love, yes. And this is going to go, you have my word that we're going to go beyond just kind of this surfacey, try this, try that. And we're going to get into some really deep conversations. But I have to tell you that it will impact other relationships, but I don't actually care about your other relationships right now. What I want to see is I want to see you fall madly in love with your own body and learn on your own what it means to be in this skin that's carried you so long from a place of gratitude, from a place of compassion. And so we're going to talk about some of the myths. We're not going to spend a lot of time diving into the why. We're just going to spend a lot of time diving into the what do we do about it. I've got a couple of documentaries that I'm going to show you. They're fun ones. Don't worry. They're not like school film reels that were always so dry and boring. But we're going to be talking, we're going to have a workshop from my friend Lori Kimberly, who is going to be talking about finding your own sensuality and tapping into the sexy you. And not in a way that can be exploited or not in a way that is going to be harmful in any way, but a way that is going to let you wake up every day and just feel really good in your shame. Or really good in your shame, really good in your skin, right? So the teaching I'm going to be doing is about finding your mojo, and again, solely for your own pleasure. We'll also have an activity, very, very simple activity. It's going to require some vulnerability, but it's going to allow you to explore your sensuality, explore your body without shame. Okay. And then, like I said, I've got a couple shows that we're going to do, a couple shows we're going to watch where some people get really, really honest. And then I have a whole gaggle of links that I'm going to share with you. Some of them for videos, some of them for products, some of them for tutorials, really, really sensual tutorials, and just some cool stuff that we're going to be diving into. So I've dropped the link for the wilderness community into the comments below. It should be in the pinned post. I would love for you to join me. That is, if you're not familiar with what that is my off Facebook coaching community. So nobody on Facebook can tell if you're in there or not. You get to control your name, decide if you want to add your picture, all those different things, right? So there's a really, really significant level of privacy, and we're giving you back the control that sometimes we don't always have on Facebook, right? Like sometimes people see what groups we're in or what pages we follow, and you know, it's your deconstruction, it's your body. You don't have to share that with anybody else if you don't want to. So that link is in the comments. I would love to see you over there. It's only $29. And one of the best things is that there is an archive. So if you join this month, you'll be able to see the teachings we did in February, including our guest speaker, Tara Ting. And you'll also be able to see the sessions that we did in January, which Kit Kennedy was in there, and we were talking about how to help our brains reset from trauma. Okay, so there's some really cool stuff in there. You can let me know. You can message me on this page, or you can let me know in the comments if you have any questions about the wilderness community. But okay, that's gonna be really exciting. There's gonna be some pearl clutching, and that's okay. If it's awkward, if it's clumsy, like nobody cares. It's gonna be spicy. We're gonna be in there, and we're gonna be talking about how to make ourselves happy. And if that benefits people down the road, cool. But that's really not why we're doing it, right? Our motivation is to heal and just recognize the sacredness of our body and the sacredness of our sexuality and our desire. Because, you know, women, ladies, people who present as feminine, that's not something that culture allows us to do. So jump into that community if you want to be part of those conversations. All right, book news. So here's where we're at. Here's the update. Like I said at the beginning, this is the book so far. We are collecting names. We've got I've dropped a Google form in the comments. We are going to be talking more about book launch. We're going to have some really cool freebies. I'm going to be teaching through the book. There's just all kinds of cool stuff that we're putting in place for the book launch. Like, it's going to be big. We're going to do lots with it. So if you're interested in hearing more about that, you can find that in the comments. There's just a Google Doc. You can put your name and email in there. And if you decide at the time, when the time comes, you don't want to be part of it or you don't have time, totally cool. You're not actually committing to anything. It's just saying, hey, I want more information when it's available. So the book right now is sitting at about 50,000 words. We're running it through the last couple of edits, but two things really exciting. One is we have the name, and two, I have an ISBN number. And so as a book nerd, former employee of a bookstore, there's something about seeing an ISBN number and a copyright assigned to this little baby that I've been trying to birth for years that has made it very, very special. And so without any further ado, the book that's going to be coming out later this year is titled Kicking Toxic Religion to the Curb, Deconstruct Your Faith Without Losing Yourself. It's probably backwards, but it's right there. It's right there. And for those of you who haven't heard about the book, I'm really excited because it's kind of unique in the deconstruction space. Because it's not necessarily, my goal for this book is not to push you towards faith. It's not to push you away from faith. It's really just to point you back to yourself and to give you some practical steps where you can just start figuring out what it is that you really want by trusting yourself more. Okay, we talked about this a little bit in a workshop we did a couple weeks ago. If you were there, the best way to trust yourself more is to trust yourself more. And it sounds so quippy and it sounds so simple, but we have to remember that so much of what toxic religion has taught us has been not to trust ourselves. And the thing that's always so interesting to me is that you don't have to grow up in church to pick up these, just for this bad stuff to ooze out all over you, right? I'm in the Midwest, and it's a very Christian zone, pretty conservative, even I would say a lot of fundamentalist Christian beliefs here. And the thing is, you don't even have to be in church because it seeps into every aspect of the community. So even if you're sitting there and saying, well, I didn't grow up in church, but I still have trouble of trusting myself, there's a good chance that you've picked it up culturally, right? So to combat that, to really get your autonomy back and to get to the place where you're comfortable making decisions, you're comfortable asking questions that don't have easy answers, and you're comfortable challenging what you always thought was unchallengeable or what you were raised to believe was unchallengeable, You have to learn how to get connected to yourself, and you have to learn how to trust yourself, right? And trusting ourselves can be really terrifying when we believe that God made us in a way that we're untrustworthy, right? That our feelings, our emotions, our intuition, all those different things, we're taught that a lot of those will lead us away from God. But I have to tell you, the truths that I've seen, and the truths that I've discovered, and the truths that many, many, many other people in deconstruction who have discovered, is that our intuition and our dreams and our feelings and all those other parts of us are just as sacred and holy as the sacraments that we were taught were sacred and holy, right? So, things like worship, baptism, marriage, all those things that we're taught were holy sacraments. We're not often taught then our body is a holy sacrament. And that if we really believe in the Christian God who created us in love and who created us with autonomy and free will, then we have to take a big old step back from all of these unhealthy doctrines and these toxic belief systems that are telling us that we shouldn't have autonomy, that when we make our own decisions, when we control our own bodies and we listen to all the parts of us, not just above the eyebrows, the brain part, right? But like all the parts of us, we're told so many times that's not good and that's going to lead us astray. So a big part of this book is the without losing yourself, right? There's a lot of books out there about deconstruction, and there's a lot of deconstruction topics too, right? We need to decolonize. We need to talk about racism. We need to talk about gender bias, talk about misogyny. We need to talk about how the church has really been responsible for a lot of genocide, and not just cultural genocide, but actual unaliving of people, right? I'm trying to wipe out entire communities under the guise of saving them, right? Saving them from whatever savage version the Christians thought they were, when they were just fine, right? Like that colonized view of other people has just done a lot of damage. So there's a lot of conversations to be had about that. But one of the things that I found in over a decade of coaching people and working with people in different capacities is that all the information in the world doesn't matter if you don't have a system for processing it. If you don't have a system for pulling it in, listening to it, feeling it move all through your body and saying, what do I want to do with this? And then trusting what you figure out, right? How do you look at the Bible, right? How do you look at doctrines about heaven and hell and sin? How do you bring those in, and what are you filtering them through, right? Because we only know what we know. And so the majority of us are going to have to filter those things through all the old systems that we have and the old teachings that we have. But then there's usually that little small voice that says, maybe this isn't right. This doesn't sit right. This doesn't seem to represent the God that I know. Or, perhaps this does represent the God that I know, but that doesn't even make sense anymore. That type of God, that image of God, just that theology about who God is doesn't align with where I'm at anymore. How do you then take all that information and process it and make some decisions and trust yourself enough to keep going, right? A lot of times we trust ourselves enough to ask the questions, but we don't necessarily trust ourselves to answer those questions. And so we hop from church to church, or from denomination to denomination, or from one spiritual guru to the next. And what happens is we're still acting out what we were taught in toxic religion, which is to trust someone else in authority, to trust someone else who has more experience, who is spiritually more wise than we are, and to do as they say, right? And to trust their judgment more than ourselves. And there is absolutely a tremendous value in having mentors. There's a tremendous value in having people go before you. But what we have to do is we have to dismantle. We have to take apart that system where we were taught to value other people's intellect and intuition and wisdom more than our own, And we have to ask what parts of that are actually sacred and holy. And so that's one of the things we're going to do in the book. Because, I do this in my coaching programs, and there's a lot in here that's in one of my most transformative coaching programs. I'll just be honest with you. I've done a lot of one-on-one coaching and group coaching and standalone classes and whatnot. And the people who have gone through the coaching program that this book is deeply rooted in, they've done some good stuff. They've done some good stuff, and they come out at the other end changed. And it's not because of me. It's not because of the group. It's because they're learning to trust themselves, and they're learning to recognize when they're not trusting themselves. They're also learning to listen to their body. And so listening to your body is going to be really crucial as you go through deconstruction. What even does listening to your body mean? Well, you know how sometimes you get a pain or you get a knot in your stomach, or you're talking about something and your throat tightens up a little bit? That's your body trying to tell you something. What is your body trying to tell you? Well, I don't know. It's your body, right? So we have to learn how to drop into our body and how to value the things that our body is telling us just as much as we value this book, or that podcast that I listened to yesterday, or what my preacher said, or what my parent taught me, or the body picks up on a lot of things, and indigenous wisdom has known this for years. The body is a sacred, holy piece of us, and unfortunately, because of exploitation and colonization, we haven't been taught that. And so it's time to get that back, right? It's time to go back to who we would have always been had toxic religion not come in and completely trampled all over us. Okay. So those are the two things that I wanted to share with you today. If you're watching on the replay, let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear your thoughts on both things. Especially around the purity culture thing, we're talking about sex next month in the wilderness community, and not just sex, but really sensuality and intimacy in all spaces. So, come as you are. Yep, I just said that. No pun intended. Show up in the group as you are. There's no expectations. Like I said, it's anonymous. You can share your name. You can not share your name. It's totally up to you. But I would love to see you in there. And I have to tell you, Lori Kimberly, who's going to be teaching our guest workshop, is one of my favorite people. We may even talk about this in the workshop. We'll have to see. But Lori did some work with me. Oh gosh, it's probably been 4 or 5 years now. I'll have to sit back and think about when that really was. But I bet that was 4 or 5 years ago. And I won't say it was triggering, but it's almost like there were some dominoes that fell afterwards, because I had no idea how closed off from my body I actually was. And so it was kind of me using my head, trying to move through some gentle movement and some activities. And my body's like, nope, you're not paying attention to us. Nope, we're not going to do that. So personal experience with Lori is fantastic. Yeah, Sherry, I can't believe it. As soon as I said it, I was like, oh, that's punny. My personal experience with Lori is fantastic. She's also a good friend, and she's a straight shooter. So it's definitely not going to be something you want to listen to with your kids around, but I'm going to promise you that it's going to be a safe space with some really beautiful feminine energy, where we get to talk about our bodies, and we get to talk about what does it mean to be fulfilled? What does it mean to look in the mirror and actually not just be okay, but be happy with what you see? And, how do we tend to our own needs, and how do we stay connected with our body in the day to day when it feels like the world is just going to shit? How do we allow our body to support us, and how do we allow the other parts of ourselves to support our body in ways that kind of give back? They're protective, but they're not closed off, right? We have to be really careful. We talk about bodies being fortresses sometimes. Well, our bodies weren't meant to be a fortress. That's why we're so wired for connection. Brene Brown talks about this all the time. So there's vulnerability that's required, but most of us, okay, this is going to be sharp and pointy. Most of us don't even know how to be vulnerable with ourselves. So how are we going to be vulnerable with other people, right? Most of us don't even know how to love and support ourselves without shame or guilt or codependency or, kind of a bartering system. Well, I'll be kind to my body because I'm sick and I need to get better. because I got to go back to work or I got kids to take care of or whatever, right? Like that's the way we barter. How do we enter into relationships if the only type of love that we've ever given ourselves is rooted in performance, is rooted in perfectionism, is rooted in this kind of walled off, like lack of vulnerability posture? And maybe it's not always been like that, right? A lot of us have been through trauma. And so in a post-traumatic situation, whether you actually have PTSD or not, um, it's hard to be vulnerable. I'll be the first to admit that. It is really hard to be vulnerable. But loosening your hands a little bit and giving yourself a little bit of space to breathe is going to be so rewarding, even if it's really awkward and painful at the beginning. Learning to trust yourselves is going to be, sorry, I have an eyelash in my eye. Learning to trust yourself is going to be really transformative, not just for your faith, but for all the aspects of your life. Yes, it will impact your spirituality, but it's also going to impact your inner language. It's also going to impact, so I'm just going to sit here and blink at you all day, guys. It's also going to impact the way you work. It's going to impact the way you do grocery shopping and menu planning. Like, I know that sounds ridiculous, but anything that you're doing in life, when you're in your body, your connection and your love and your trust for your body, and your lack of shame for your body and your body functions, all of them, is going to trickle out into your entire world. It just has to, right? That's just the way we work. So those are the two things I really wanted to share with you. I would love for you, I'm gonna have to go get some eye drops, guys. I would absolutely love for you to join us in the wilderness community. Like I said, it's $29. You can find the link below. There's also an information page. So when you click on the link, it takes you to an info page. Get all the information, and then you can make a decision. Don't forget that you also get January and February's content with guest speakers Kit Kennedy and Tara Tang, who's an embodiment coach, a sensuality coach, and we talked about some fantastic things last month. And then you're going to get Lori Kimberly's session this month, in addition to coaching activity, extra resources, and a special little sacred practice that you can do in the privacy of your own home to just explore what it is you actually need. And then the second thing is, of course, the title. If you missed it, you go back and watch the replay. But the title of my new book that's going to be coming out later this year, published by Erdman's. Thank you very much, Erdman's team. Lifesavers. You're really helping me navigate this well. As a first-time author, I'm really excited to have a good publishing house. So Erdman's is going to be publishing it, and the title is Kicking Toxic Religion to the Curb, Deconstruct Your Faith Without Losing Yourself. Can't wait to read your comments. I'll go back after and make sure that link is popped in there. But thanks so much for being here. And let me know. Let me know if there's any, we're talking about sex this month, but let me know if there are any other topics you want me to take on, because we're bringing the blog back to life. We're doing lots of interviews and putting out some new content. Spring is definitely coming here. Winter is fading. Thank goodness it's finally fading. And so there's a lot of really cool energy. My team has got some cool energy, and I'm feeling inspired to write again. So let me know what you want us to take on. Nothing is off limits. Nothing's off limits. So let me know. Y'all enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you again here very, very soon.